Well, hello everyone. So I am Anggita Debora and I got the first turn to present the materials of our groups. The title is The Origins of Language. So actually, I want to ask you guys, what is language? So according to the Cambridge Advanced Learners Dictionary and Thesaurus, language is a system of communication consisting of sounds, words, and grammar, or the system of communication used by people in a particular country or type of work. And yeah, we simply don't know for sure how and when language originated. We just suspect that some type of spoken language must have developed between 100,000 and 50,000 years ago. And you know that the language we know today in written form is much younger. It's not more than 5,000 years ago. And yeah, there are plenty of speculation about the origins of language. And the first is the divine source. According to biblical tradition, as described in the book of Genesis, God created Adam, and whatsoever Adam called every living creature around him, that was the name thereof. However, there are other traditions that is according to Hindu religion. Language came from Sarasvati, Brahma's wife, who according to Hindu believes that Brahma is the creator of the universe, and his wife Sarasvati is the source of language. In most religions, there appears to be a divine source of language. However, sometimes people actually try to do some experiment. They try to find out the divine source of the language. And the basic hypothesis seems to have been that if human infants were allowed to grow up without hearing any language around them, then perhaps they will use the original God-given languages. And the second source is natural sound source. So this source states that the earliest words was actually designed from imitation of natural sounds. The basic idea behind this theory is that humans must have observed the sounds of living creatures is around them. For example, like birds and like animals, and you know, all of these creatures produce some sounds similarly, must have heard the sounds of natural sources and sounds of natural vibration. For example, like waterfall, storm, and you can say floods and such incidents. And in this natural sound source, there are two theories. The first is bow wow theory. This theory states that humans have learned sounds from living creatures, and in this scenario, when different objects flew by making a cow or cuckoo sound, the early human tried to imitate that. They tried to imitate that sound, and then they used them to refer to those objects even when they weren't present. In English, in addition to cuckoo, we have splash, bang, boom, rattle, buzz, hiss, screech, and of course bow wow. And the words that sound similar to the noise described are example of onomatopoeia. And the next theory is the Puh-Puh theory. So this theory states that the original sounds of a language may have come from involuntary emotional responses such as anger, joy, and pain. For example, wow, ouch, oops, and etc. Let's go to the third sources. So the third source is the social interaction source. This source has a theory named Ye-He-Ho theory. The idea is that the sounds of a person involved in a physical effort could be the source of our language. Early people must have lived in groups, if only because larger groups offered better protection from attack. And then the third source is the physical adaptation source. Instead of looking at types of sounds as the source of human speech, we can look at the types of physical features human process, especially those that may have supported speech production. And the sources of this physical adaptation include lips and teeth, mouth and tongue, and larynx and pharynx. This is a little explanation of the teeth and lips. Human teeth are upright. They are helpful in making sounds such as F or V, and human lips helps in making sounds like P, B, and M. In fact, the B and M sounds are the most widely attached in the vocalizations made by humans in infants during their first year, no matter which language their parents are using. And then human mouth is relatively small compared to primates and can be opened and closed rapidly. So that's all from my material.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Ihsan Adib Rizqi, and my student number is A1B219042. Next, the tool making source. In the physical adaptation field, one function, that is producing speech sound, must have been superimposed on existing anatomical features, that is, teeth and lips, previously used for other purposes, like chewing and sucking. A similar development is believed to have taken place with human hand, and some believe that manual gestures may have been a precursor of language. By about 2 million years ago, there is evidence that humans had developed preferential right-handedness and had become capable of making stone tools. Tool making, or the outcome of manipulating objects and changing them using both hands, is evidence of a brain network. The human brain. The human brain is not only large relative to human body size, it is also literalized, that is, it has specialized function in each of the two hemispheres. The function that control the muscle movement involved in complex vocalization or speaking, and the object manipulation, like making or using tools, are very close to each other in the left hemisphere of the brain. That is the area of the motor cortex that controls the muscles of the arms and hands, in next of the articulatory muscle of the face, jaw, and tongue. It may be that there was an evolutionary connection between the language using and tool using abilities of humans, and that both were involved in the development of the speaking brain. Now the genetical source. We can think of the human baby in its first few years as a living example of some of these physical changes taking place. At birth, the baby's brain is only a quarter of its eventual weight, and the larynx is much higher in the throat, allowing babies like chimpanzee to breathe and drink at the same time. In a relatively short period of time, the larynx descends, the brain develops, the children assume an upright posture and starts walking and talking. And this almost automatic set of development and the complexity of the young child's language have led some scholars to look for something more powerful than small physical adaptation over time as the source of language. Even children who are born deaf and don't develop speech become fluent signs language user. Given appropriate circumstance very early in life, they seem to indicate that human offspring are born with a special capacity for language. It's innate. No other creature seems to have it, and it's not tied to specific variety of language. Is it? The inheritance hypnotizes. However, as we consider the hypnotizes, we find our speculation about the origins of language moving away from fossil evidence or the physical source of basic human sounds towards analogies with how computer works. For example, being pre-programmed or hardwired, and concepts take from the study of biology and genetics. The investigation of the origins of language then turns into a search for the special language genetic that only human possess. Now the animal and human language. The combination types of human and animal language divided into two, that is informative signal and communicative signal. The informative signal is the type of communication you accidentally or you not intentionally make it, but someone else knows the meaning of the signal or the meaning of the not intentionally. For example, sneeze. The sneeze shows that you are sick or you are unwell. Now the communication signal. The communication signal is the type of communication you intentionally do it to tell something. The type of communication you intentionally do it. For example, stop sign, and another sample is you say I'm so happy or I'm so sad to tell your feelings to your friends.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello everyone, my name is Rizky Nur Hidayah. Student number is A1B219029. So I will continue the material that has been delivered by Ihsan Adib Rizqi. So here we go. So let me start with properties of human language. There are 6 aspects in properties of human language, and namely is displacement, reflexivity, arbitrariness, cultural transmission, duality, and productivity. Here I want to explain to all of you about the 6 aspect in properties of human language. So here we go. The first is reflexivity. So human can use language to think and talk about language itself. The example is can reflect on language and its use. And animals can use this signal to talk about other signal. And the example is dog cannot barking in giving a piece to other dog. And the next is displacement. So human can talk about past, present, future. The example is yesterday I watched movie. And also human can talk about things that don't exist and human cannot see. The example is yesterday grandpa went to the heaven. And meanwhile the animals communicated is about hair. And now the example is meow meow means I'm hungry now, not tomorrow or yesterday. So it means when your cat makes sound like meow meow, it means he is hungry. Give them food now, not tomorrow or yesterday. Like that. So next is arbitrariness. So human no rational connection between the form and its meaning. The example is table. The word table did not that is furniture. And the next is meanwhile animals there is a connection between the convey message and its signal used to convey it. And the example is to protect the territory, a limited set of signal forms. So they make a signal to protect the territory. And the next is productivity. So human can create new words, human can create new vocabulary. And for example the word that hey watch out for the flying snake. So human can make a new word like bahasa gaul kita bilang demikian. And meanwhile animals have only a limited set of signal and each signal is fixed and related to particular object. So the example is cicadas have only 4 signal. They have limited on productivity, I think. So the next is cultural transmission. Human acquire language in culture with other speakers, not parental genes. So the example is a kid born to Korean parents in Korea, but adopted and brought up from birth by English speakers in the United States. The kid will speak English. And the next is animals. So animals born with a set of specific signals that are produced instinctively. The example is a kitten will produce meow regardless where it was born, and that's not changed from he life till he die. I think like that. So in the next duality, human distinct sound example have sound but did not contain meaning. And then distinct meaning example rearrange the word and still have meaning. And meanwhile animals The communicative signals are fixed and cannot be broken into different parts. The example is male, cannot be separated into M, E, O, and W. So the next is, this is a research from the scientists to analyze chimpanzee and language. So he going to analyze about chimpanzee language. So here we go. There are, the bottom of the PowerPoint is the name of chimpanzee. There are Wasu. So Wasu is a chimpanzee, for your information, adopted by Dr. Allen and Betty Gardner. So the first chimpanzee or non-human to acquire human language through ASL or American Sign Language. So Rasu was raised as a deaf child. Sign language was constantly used when she was around. And the next is Sarah. Sarah is one of chimpanzee. A chimpanzee learned to manipulate arbitrary plastic symbols standing for word. The experiments were conducted by Anna and David Primart. Use plastic token. The token represent word and varied in shapes, size, textures, and colors. And the next is Lana. Lana is a chimpanzee learned human language using an electronic keyboard. Headed by Dun Pung Bauk. The language of lexigram each of represent one word called hierarchies. And the last one is Kanji. Kanji is the first observer that learn language sing naturally rather than a direct training. He is able to master 10 words that research tried to teach Matata, his adoptive mother. Now he has learned about 200 words. He is able to correctly point to correctly lexigram when he hears spoken word through headphones. And so what is the controversy? The last, there are questions about, can chimpanzee speak like human language? The answer is not, because animals with chimpanzee only produce a particular behavior in response to particular noise, but they don't actually understand the word's meaning. They might spontaneously use the language depending on their training. Human abilities relies on the ability to understand the cues and gesture, then reply to speaker message. So I think that's all from our groups. Thank you for your attention. So I think we're gonna move to Zoom. In Zoom, you can give me some question, and you can give the opinion, or maybe up to you. So I think that's all from our group. Thank you for your attention. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.